Hello and welcome to this video cast on the Queen of Discs. I'm sorry it's taken a little while to get around to making this video, but it's the summer months with all the sunshine, and I've been away a little bit to Cornwall, and various jobs needed doing as well, so it's a time of year when my time gets taken up a bit more. But anyway, we'll go on to the last of the queens today, and as we can see by her picture, she's the only queen which is not looking forward, facing forward of the four queens. She's actually looking back over her journey in the desert there, and she's standing in this sort of rich oasis in the foreground. So implied within this picture is the element that she's actually undergone some sort of journey, and implied within that as well is also a sense of self-mastery, which seems to pervade throughout all of the queens, which I will summarise in the next video. So in this card, her sense of it being a journey is portrayed in her physical path through the desert. In the Queen of Wands, for instance, it was depicted in these spots on the leopard as being part of her past. The queens are probably the most mature of all of the court cards. I know we haven't done the princes and princesses, but as we saw with the knights, they're really like a burst of energy without any real insight into their nature, whereas the queens are certainly much more reflective. With regards to her, the next section, which goes into the Queen of Discs in detail, we'll be looking at how the attributes to her, which is very which are based around the sign of Capricorn, are balanced with her also having this motherly and nurturing element to her, because Capricorn can be very detached, can be very efficient, very ambitious, but also is not known for it being particularly emotional and engaging in that way, whereas this element of her being engaging and being nurturing is very much a part of the meaning of the card. So we'll see pretty much how the Tree of Life links those two qualities together, and that's done through this card, which is the Priestess. Okay, without further ado, we'll move on to the main section and look at the symbology of the Queen of Discs in detail. Okay, Queen of Discs. Doesn't at first sight appear there's an awful lot going on, but we'll have a look at the symbology in a little while. We'll just build up her sub-elements first. We'll take a look at her sub-elements rather. So, Queen of Discs, we've got water and earth. This box here in the sub-element table. Water and earth, if we look at our elemental dignities, these are two elements which aren't in conflict. They are actually friendly and passive, so we wouldn't expect a great deal of conflict within her nature. It does occur, which we'll have a look at later, because she rules the last decan of Sagittarius, ruled by the Ten of Wands, which is oppression, and the influence of Saturn there. But generally she's a very positive card to get in a reading. Next table or diagram is the Tetragrammaton, and as with all the queens, she's associated with Hay Primal. We've got this idea or concept of this being associated with a window. Windows are passive. It's like in a house, or they basically transmit light from the outside in, and vice versa. So we've got this idea of receptivity, passivity, and this also occurs, if we have a look here, she's associated with B.O.T.A, as all the queens are, and B.O.T A heads the pillar of severity, as the force from Hokmah in the second Sephiroth is passed on to B.O.T A in the third Sephiroth there. It's a pillar of severity because even though it's female and passive, in giving birth to life, to form, you essentially add the seed of death within that. If we take meditation for example, there are planes of consciousness which can be accessed and meditated upon, and even there are beings inside which have never known physical birth, and time is of a different time only exists up to a certain point within creation, and then there are formless regions which are beyond time. So in terms of going back to the card, it's almost like the kiss of death once something comes into form, because it's bound to change. And this cyclical element, which stems from this aspect of the Tree of Life, has a knock-on effect on the meanings of the card, and it's also repeated later on, as I'll demonstrate. So, lot to get through. We'll move on. Last bit of the Kabbalah here. She's associated with B.O.T A in a Saya. Saya is the world of form, the lowest on the Tree of Life there. Mustn't miss out this diagram. Astrologically, she rules 21 degrees of Sagittarius, the last decan, to 20 degrees of Capricorn. That's the first 2 decans of Capricorn, and here she is. There's the last decan of Sagittarius and the first 2 of Capricorn, and these are ruled by the 10 of Wands, 2 of Discs and 3 of Discs respectively. Capricorn and Sagittarius, how does this help in translating to the meaning of the card? Well, Sagittarius, we've got the element of travel, which if we look back to the card itself, it's very evident that she's travelled, she's done a journey through the desert. And Sagittarius is also associated with wisdom and philosophy, it's ruled by Jupiter. Capricorn, a big element of the card, rules 2 decans of Capricorn. Capricorn is all about, we'll quote Crowley here, he says these people are quiet, hard-working, practical, sensible, but can be dull, with life becoming purely mechanical. So very down-to-earth, very useful, and can be quite emotionally detached as well. So that's where the astrology comes in there. So we'll have a look at the symbology of the card. We've got a goat on a golden globe here. So again, that represents the Sun in Capricorn there, and the strong influence of Capricorn. The goat itself, a mountainous goat, in Capricorn, the goat has a advantage of the height of the mountain, and therefore there is the implication that these people can be quite spiritually evolved, or at least within life they have a very high perspective on things, as the mountain goat does. So there's a degree of self-mastery here, and this runs through the whole of the queens, which I will just briefly sum up in the next video before we go on to the princes. This element of self-mastery. These horns are very, very dominant in the card. They're the horns of Markor, which is a wild goat found in mountainous regions of Afghanistan. And there they are. These horns are not quite so long, so maybe these are younger goats, but again we've got this demonstration of them being having a high viewpoint. We've got biblical similarities. Mountains symbolically are always associated with a high spiritual viewpoint. If you read my essay on Noah's Ark, where it comes to rest on Mount Ararat, then the mount is symbolic of a high spiritual perspective. Okay, back to the card itself. We've got some reptilian armour to briefly talk about here. Reptilian armour again on the helmet there. Again, that's associated with growth and renewal. We'll now come to a major part of the card. We've got this hexagram type wand, shaped wand in her right hand, and we have a cube in the middle of that. So this gives us the number 6 for the hexagram, which is associated with Tiphereth, the 6th Sephiroth. The cube is associated with Earth. So, which brings me sort of to my next diagram. This, how can the that one be associated with this diagram? Well, the number 6 is associated with the sun, which rules Tiphereth, and the 4, the cube, is associated with the earth. So it's all about the ability of the Queen of Discs to produce things which are practical and useful for society, and this element of growth which is associated with her. So lots of good things to say about this this lady. We look at this orb here. You can see a load of rings in the middle, and there are 13 rings. I've counted them, they are in fact 13. So what is the number 13 doing, or how is that useful for this card? Well, it all makes up a very, very important aspect of her nature, which is not usually talked about. It represents a 13 path here linking Keta and Tiphereth. And this 13th path on the Tree of Life is associated with I won't have the card now, will I? Here it is. Thank you for bearing with me. It's associated with the priestess and this planet here, which is the moon. Again, you've got these moon shapes here, the triple moon helmet. So we have the influence of the sun and the moon. How is that significant? Well, as we said, the sun is associated with Capricorn, with growth, with the ability to go out and follow your life plan and be a useful member of society. Very good at achieving things. But the moon is associated with nurturing, which is also another very important side to this card, because she does represent nurturing of the family. That does come up with regards to her meaning, and it also means that there must be some sort of integration between her feelings, her emotions, and what she produces materially in the world through the sun. So there has to be some integrating factor between what she has to produce things in order to get the best out of the Queen of Discs. She has to produce things that are emotionally important to her. So there's integration of energies between the passivity of the moon and the activity of the sun. So the orb represents that integration between sun and moon. Last little bit of the card, I think, is this background area here, which is a desert with a river running through. So it's obvious that she's travelled. She's now at her oasis, a very rich place where she's at, but she's done a journey, she's travelled, she's gained experience, and some of these times may have been pretty bare. So there are times in her life when she's just struggled, but the river here, there's always been some sort of direction, some sort of spiritual flow or flow of energy for her to be able to carry on. Okay, we'll go on to the next section of the card and of the talk, and this is all about 3 minor arcana cards that she rules. And the 2 decans of Capricorn she rules. The first decan, which is associated with the 2 of discs, and that concept of change, birth and regeneration and death comes up again, as I said it would. It comes up here in the 2 of discs. Here we see this reptile, the shedding of old, starting of new, sort of eating its tail. This process of change and flexibility and adaptability that's associated with this card. She also rules the second decan of Capricorn, which is associated with works, and this is Mars in Capricorn again. This is her energy, the Mars energy, to go out and create what she wants. This pyramid, as we described in detail in the relevant minor arcana video, is it's the product of those energies, and this links in well with her just sitting in this oasis here. That's like the product of her journey, the richness, the tangible results of that. I also said she had a shadow side, and that is the 10 of Wands. How is that associated with her shadow side? Well, it's this card is entitled Depression. We have the influence of Saturn here. So if events in her life are suppressing her will, just a little fire in the background here with sparks. Again, this card has been dealt with in detail. But if a will is suppressed by people, external events, even health matters, then she feels very oppressed. She can lose confidence in herself and her ability to achieve what she wants. Okay, we are almost finishing now. Mr. Crowley associates the Queen of Discs with the 31st hexagram, and this is all about adapting. It's like looking at people in your life and seeing what they attract in their life, and by looking at that and their interrelationships, it can then give us insights into if that person's going to be useful in our life for getting and achieving our Capricorn type goals. This hexagram represents the 2 elements of earth and water. The lower hexagram is representative, lower trigram, I beg your pardon, is associated with earth and mountain. So Ken here, that's to do with tranquility and stillness, which is the mountain, and that attracts the lake here, which is joy and peace. So this hexagram is trying to tell us that there has to be some sort of tranquility and stillness for us to be able to achieve our goals. So it's all about making good judgments as well, this hexagram. Okay, we've gone to the very last section here, and that is probably the least important. And it is the good old Celtic cross. So, if the Queen of Discs appears in the heart of the situation, the first card, it could be representing our need to be emotionally fulfilled in what we do in the world and our personal life. We may want to see the fruits of our efforts, but in order for us to get the best of ourselves, as well as looking at our great ability to get what we want, we also need to recognise that it has to be emotionally and internally important to us. Obstacle, challenge, if it comes as a crossing influence. It may represent the fact that we're unable to achieve our ambitions, our Capricorn ambitions, due to circumstance, life events, or other people getting in the way of that. That's the Ten of Wands coming in there. Maybe there's a disconnect between this integration between our internal sort of needs, that needs of the moon, of the priestess, and the needs of our Capricorn influence. Recent past, we won't go into everyone, but the recent past could represent a period of change and growth. We have not been moving forward towards our goal, maybe something that we wanted for a long time. There have been things that have got in the way of that, or it may just be that time has played its part, and it's indicating that we've had a long journey that's maybe not being fulfilled as yet, but we need to still work on that. So if we go back to the neutral diagram, past could be this person working her way through the desert there. Hopes and goals, career, family, taking care of others, that nurturing aspect, being emotionally fulfilled, having a clear view on things that are important to us. Short-term future, number 6. Being focused and not distracted in our way forward, and learning to go with the flow of life. That's the Two of Discs coming in. Self-image, practical, ambitious, environment. Could be somebody nurturing, caring, quite busy, but health and diet are important to them. Warning here, what could that mean with this card? It could mean that we're becoming too materialistic. We're just following materialistic goals that Capricorn wants to do. Our life might become overly dull and mechanical. So again, we're not connecting with ourselves emotionally enough. So we're quite detached from things, even though. So that could represent someone who's got outwardly and materially a lot, and you think, well, what's wrong with them? Well, this would answer that. Overall outcome, I would say, I would try and stress the positive. It's someone who will reach their goals, perhaps not straight away, may take a long time to get there, or certainly a period of time, but the overall result is that they will have much more knowledge of themselves, of life. They'll have integrated what they feel emotionally and be able to express that in what they do in the world. So I'll conclude there. All the notes are on my website. Thanks very much for bearing with me. Another long video, I know. God knows what the major arcana are going to be like, but there you go. Okay, take care of yourselves, and bye for now.